In your book description, you mentioned that they actually pulled some EVPs from this even.
I did personally.
Oh, you did?
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. I moved into Fox Hollow on a couple of occasions. I told Rob that I would love to research the case and write about it. And to be honest with you, I was in two minds about whether to do a book about Fox Hollow. The main reason that I was cautious was that I did not want to upset any of the loved ones of the men that died there.
Right.
But as I delved into it, I found that most of them were either completely disowned by their families or had no families. Herb targeted his victims with that in mind. Right. And probably the saddest thing of all, I think, is that even to this day, many of them have never been identified. You know, their bodies are actually in storage. They're in evidence storage. Their remains. So you look at all these poor young men who died under these horrific circumstances and were never given any kind of burial. They never had any kind of closure in their life. And I didn't want to tear open any wounds for family members, but when I learned that really a lot of the families either weren't engaged or didn't even know, I decided I wanted to go ahead and research it. And I asked Rob essentially to let me move in with a small team of investigators. And to his absolute credit, Rob never said, sure, that'll be $500 a night or anything like that. He opened his home to me and he said, research the way you do research. And if you find something great, you know, if there's a story, by all means tell it. But tell it truthfully. That's all I ask of you. So we had strange things happen from our very first night at Fox Hollow. And it's an interesting kind of place. I would love to take somebody there someday that had no idea what had happened at the house to tell me if they feel or sense anything amiss about it. Because I don't think I could live there. If you gave that place to me for free, a multi-million-dollar house, I don't think I could live there. You know, I'd think twice, honestly, about house sitting for them. Because there's just something about that place, you know. I think it's got some kind of an emotional psychic scar or whatever because of the trauma that took place there. But we got a number of EVPs. I got into the pool. I'd seen the episode of the show Ghost Adventures where they had gone to Fox Hollow Farm, and it kind of surprised me that they had never gotten into the pool. And my thought is, when in my career am I ever going to investigate a haunted swimming pool?
Yeah.
I've done two so far. Yeah, I've done two. And one of them.
It's like work and vacation at the same time.
Right. So we were there in November, though. And so I break out, I get into my swimming trunks, and the water is so cold. It's freezing. And Rob said, oh, yeah. I said, you know, it costs us about $800 a month to heat the pool. And I like you, Richard, but not that much. So if you want to get in, you're basically going to have to suck it up. So I did. And it was freezing. Just telling you now brings back how cold it was. But we set up our equipment. We set up EVP recorders around the room, digital voice recorders. And one of my colleagues was growled at while he was swimming in the pool, which was pretty interesting. But the one that creeped me out the most, we heard absolutely nothing at the time. I was just swimming quietly around the pool, lights out, very, very eerie. Nothing really amiss, you know. All I could hear was my teeth chattering. But when we played the audio back, you very, very clearly hear a male voice whisper the name Laura. And if your viewers, listeners would like to hear this, it's on my YouTube channel. Richard Estep is my YouTube channel. It whispers the name Laura. Now, that's my wife's name.
Ooh.
And my wife at the time was like 1,000 miles away in Colorado. She wasn't with us, but there is no Laura connected with Fox Hollow Farm. Certainly no women were murdered there. So I took that to be almost a personal, you know, implied threat, if you will. Very, very creepy.
Yeah, man.
But it wasn't the only EVP we got. And again, another one that you can hear on my YouTube channel. We went out into the woods at one of the two body disposal sites. And we brought in a number of mediums. I like to bring in self-professed psychics that have a good reputation. And I like to just, you know, show me what you've got. I'll keep an open mind. And some of them produce results and many of them don't. But I do at least feel like it's worth, you know, attempting to see what they can give us. So one of them led us to the burn pile and said, I have a strong suspicion there are still human remains here that have yet to be discovered. And so when he left, I went over to Rob and I said, Rob, you have a Walmart nearby? And he said, yeah. I said, well, they have a gardening section. What time do they close? So we went and we bought out pick, shovel, digging equipment. And the following day, we went and dug in that location. And I thought, if we find remains, we're going to have to stop everything and we're going to have to contact the authorities. That would be the right thing to do. But I couldn't leave that hanging. If there was something there to be discovered, I couldn't leave it hanging in good conscience. Now, we left digital voice recorders running as we dug. And fortunately, we found nothing out of the ordinary. No bones, no remains. But shortly after we'd begun digging, you hear on the audio very plainly a male voice, and it sounds strangulated, very hoarse and raspy, and it says the words, "Get away from there."
Man. Yeah, EVPs are something that I find to be just, I'm generally healthy skeptic about everything, but EVPs I always find just really creepy when they come through, especially when they tie into what's going on. And, get away from there, maybe that was a place where the bones were recovered already from, but the residuals are still there or something like that.
Or somebody didn't want something discovered.
Yeah.
And this comes down to a lot of the question of what haunts Fox Hollow Farm. And I say what rather than who, because there are a number of theories. I don't like the thought that any of the victims may still be there, purely because those poor boys suffered enough. And I really hope they've moved on to some kind of peace to whatever comes next. The idea that Herb Baumeister himself haunts the farm has been floated by a lot of people. Ghost Adventures went with that angle, which, color me shocked, right? The idea of the spirit of a serial killer haunting his old house. Now, it's possible, sure, but two of the mediums, independently of one another that I had involved, both told me that something non-human is involved in the pool area especially, and that it was drawn there because of all the negative energy that arose from the murders. And I'm not one of those researchers that sees demons everywhere. I think that's a very overused term and a very loaded term, to say the least. But I am open to the possibility of there being such a thing as a non-human entity. And they've said, yeah, that this thing is drawn to the area of the pool. It's negative, and it's kind of like a parasite that was drawn to Fox Hollow because of the emotional trauma and is feeding from that. And they also said it likes to imitate Herbert Baumeister. It likes to pretend to be him. And I didn't tell you the creepiest thing that happened to me. I will never forget this. As long as I live, we were doing an EVP session in the pump room of the pool. And one of my fellow investigators, the only female on the team on this particular trip, had gotten poked in the back, about mid-level in the center of her back. She insisted it was a finger that jabbed her in the back. And to me, that kind of stuff is always subjective, right? You're never going to be able to prove it actually happened. But I'm telling you that I felt, just a couple of moments later, fingertips caressing my tricep. It was the creepiest thing I think has ever happened to me in my entire life. It was, I would rather have gotten slapped, bit, or scratched. This was the kind of thing a creeper would do to you. And it made my blood run cold. I can still... Yeah, that was the most unpleasant thing that happened to me on that investigation.
Welcome to the radio, Wasteland. Hello, my darling. Welcome to the radio.